So this is the one maybe that everyone's been waiting for, which is like, what are you most excited about? How do you think this automation is going to change education in the near future? What's on the horizon?
Are we going to hand it over to the technologist?
Eric, that's your cue.
I think, thank you. I'm really looking forward to what Randy and Sam have to say, because in a lot of ways, they're the ones that are really, on the ground, right? The educators are the ones talking to the kids. So I'm really excited for their answer. But I think from our end, my answer is different than it was 2 years ago. My answer is different than it was, I would say, a month ago. But the release of the latest generation of these large language models, ChatGPT, GPT-3, those are just the name brand famous ones, but there's about a dozen of these out there. I think it's going to revolutionize. I was telling someone in the company, I think it's going to revolutionize literally every facet of our lives. I think people are just starting to grasp, and maybe not even really grasping, the power of these machines, the ability for them to really take on so many tasks, not just for teachers. I mean, in our lives, I think there's their ability to understand, to reason, to create novel text. We think a lot about students using it to create essays, and is that academic integrity? Is that plagiarism? But I think the ability, we talked about feedback. These machines can make something that was science fiction a year ago, and actually a very easy thing to develop, which is, imagine a situation where you have 40 essays to grade, and these are free-form, multi-page essays, and you ask the computer, hey, I need to know, show me all the essays where they talked about this theme and they use this evidence. And you literally ask it in natural language, and the machine comes back and it says, these are the essays. And a situation where it's right almost all the time, right? It's presenting evidence, it's understanding the writing of the students, regardless of style, and being able to allow you to suddenly grade essays at a scale that was unimaginable. And if you then take a step back and you think about assessment and what authentic assessment is, and authentic assessment is important to all of us as education professionals, the short answer is better than multiple choice. I think many of us, I think we generally would agree with that, but it's harder to grade. It doesn't scale. Suddenly short answer scales, and it scales very, very easily. So you can actually create better assessment, richer assessment. I think we're going to be heading in that direction. I also think that, and that's my last point. I'd love to hear what everyone else has to say. I think visibility and honest dialogue around what these new technologies mean in our society and education is going to be important. The initial sort of reaction, and the expected reaction is, oh, this is like the calculator, we have to kind of keep it out of classrooms. But I think, for us, our view is we're building tools, and they're actually coming. They will be out before term papers are due for this school year, to help teachers understand whether these AI writing tools have been used. And so those features are actually launching on Turnitin as we speak, actually. So that's really exciting. And we think the reason we're focusing on that is not because we're taking a stance that AI writing is good or bad. It's that we believe visibility and transparency is the foundation to having that necessary set of conversations between teachers, students, administrators. What is this technology? How is it being used? What are right places to use it? And what are places where we maybe want to keep it out because the formative learning that needs to happen in absence of these technologies. So I think that's really exciting. And I think it's, the next 5 years are going to be an enormous amount of change in our world and in our society. And education is really at the forefront of it, because the people that are in your classrooms right now, they're the future presidents, they're the future leaders, they're the future doctors and people that are going to solve all these problems that we face. So it's really important that we get it right.
I think for the next 5 years, I agree with everything that you're saying, and I specifically believe that there's going to be a lot of conversations that we're all, as administration, as teachers, as leaders in communities, are going to have to wrestle with. I remember when I did a a thesis for my degree way back when. We talked about grading papers. I thought that would be the best thing in the world. And there was already computers back in the 60s that were grading papers, and human beings just didn't trust the machine. They knew that they worked, didn't trust the machine, so that never got adopted. So teachers continued to grade those papers. Then I even got involved with a company, and I was sending the papers of my fourth grade kids to see if they could actually upgrade that as well. So it's been there, but most of the time, what stops it is the conversation. It's like we're not going to allow this to happen because for whatever reason. So we've got to have that conversation, because as soon as a kid walks out the door, it already exists. It's already there. So how are they going to apply this? How are they going to make it work? How are we going to start to allow the teachers to maybe engage the students in those, those higher order thinking skills, so that they can actually, critically think about, like, is this appropriate? Is this the right time to use it? What is the appropriate way to make this work? I think those are the things that we're all going to have to wrestle with. I read an article about ChatGPT, and all the teachers are very nervous over the regards that, like, well, now they're going to be able to write a paper. I don't know if it's authentic. I don't know if it's real. And the person was saying, maybe take Chat GPT, put it in front of your class, have the computer write the paper, and then have the kids analyze the paper. How accurate is it? How much of the information is true? How much of it is actually written correctly? Have all those things. So then you have examples, you have a way for the students to start to critically think, and you have them understanding what the structure looks like, and whether or not this artificial intelligence is actually truly completely accurate. Don't completely trust the technology, because often that data and that information being pulled may not be accurate. It could have flaws and those kinds of things. So I think in the next 5 years, there's going to be a lot of conversations, in addition to the fact that things are just going to accelerate. I mean, we started up a computer science school, and one of the things that we tried to show teacher or parents was that this is already hit. These things exist. So we talk about, Amazon's grocery store that they have in place, Amazon Go, I think it's called, and then also self-driving trucks, and how many jobs this affects when you have those kinds of technologies put in place. Parents get terrified, right? Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? They're going to be out of work. I'm like, well, maybe not. Maybe the work is starting to shift. And there's a grocery store here that I went and said, oh, well, if I'm going to be a part of this, I got to go down and go shopping, right? I got to go figure out if this is the place what happens there. And you can really see the roles of the people in the store shift and change. Like, they're now actually walking up to you and say, hey, what are you looking for? Or, these are probably the better ones than those, as you're picking things up. And then the shopping cart's telling you where to find the sales and which, things are actually available at this moment in time. So it's like, it's going to start to shift on how we actually interact as human beings, and the conversations that we're going to have to make this different. I know that's not the exciting stuff. That's kind of the boring stuff, but that's really, I think, what's going to happen in the next 5 years.
That was a good setup for me, Randy. Thank you. I want to go big picture with this one. I thought about this one a lot. In the next 5 years, I think career and technical education is going to have a huge reboot. Some states are already doing that now, but you take a look at the esports industry and how it's growing and how fast it's growing. And I think most people out there think esports is just a game, and it's something that kids do, to buy their time. But, there's scholarships with esports. There's some implications to coding. You can create a coding class based off of esports. And it really gains the students' interest who are interested in that area. And something that really surprised me, I went to Las Vegas to a conference there, and the drone industry. A kid can graduate high school and get a minimal certificate in high school, and be certified to operate drones. And drones are crop dusting now. They're being used for roofing. So the roofers don't even have to climb on the roofs anymore. They just put their drone up there and take the pictures that they need and get paid for it. And so it's amazing at what is going on. And like you said, Randy, it's not going to be a loss of jobs. The jobs may be a little bit different. But I think the main fact, and I've said this for years, and now it's been 5 years, but I used to say 65% of the jobs that are going to exist in 5 years are not even a job right now. And that's what these students that are graduating and then going to college or going to workforce are walking into. So if we're not using automation and technology and teaching them, how to use it in the classroom, then are we serving them in the way that we need to get them prepared to walk in those opportunities? And so that I was saying that 5 years ago, and now it's 5 years, and we're starting to see this stuff, take place, and that transition in the workforce, I think, is going to drive that career and technical. Because I think all of us, I don't know how old you guys are, but I've been around a little while. I think when I went to school, it was like, okay, Sam, you need to go to a 4-year college and get a degree in order to have a good paying job and have a good life for your family. And I'd say that pretty much used to be true, but I can't say that's true anymore. And when kids can walk out of high school with a certification and get into welding and make $65,000 right out the door, and a lot of other opportunities right down that same line, they don't necessarily have to go to a 4-year school anymore. And I think we're getting to the end result. If they go from high school to work and they go into a good workplace and they stay on job there for a while, chances are that business is going to want to educate them further. So they may send them to a 2-year school. And if they do well there and they move up in the workplace, they're probably going to want to send them to a 4-year school. And so they're ending up with a degree, the same degree someone would that went straight from high school into college. They're getting there. It's just a little bit different in the way that they're getting there. But, the career and technical, opportunities that are out there right now is a huge need in our country. And I think that's going to be a driving force in the next 5 years. I made some bullets and I want to throw these out there for the next two. So here, Eric and Randy, I want to hear your thoughts on this. I said politics and education will continue to grow. AI technology will continue to gain traction in education. Eric, you've already talked about that. There will be a lot more focus from the top down on return on investment in districts across the land. And then I think a huge one is disruptive innovations will play a key role because their economy's gotten a little tighter. And a lot of time those disruptive innovations will start out on a smaller scale and gain traction and then all of a sudden explode as something that everybody wants. So thoughts on that?
I agree with you, Sam. I think that we're getting to a point where AI and automation, I think in the next 5 years, I think sooner, is going to roughly be equal to people in most labor tasks. And what that leaves then, I think as educators, what that does is that actually puts a extra importance on teaching our students critical thinking, empathy, problem solving, creativity. These are things that AI doesn't do because they're kind of functions of the human experience. And I think future employers are going to value that. I hope it is as an optimist. I have a sincere hope that our future world is one where we don't spend so much time focused on humans doing labor, right? And spend more time on 8 billion people employing brilliant, creative minds to solve these huge problems, these huge challenges that we face, whether it's societally or whether it's scientifically, on our planet. So I'm hopeful that we get there. But the road between here and there means, there was a chat just about trade people a few bullets ago, and between now and there is a huge amount of disruption, and I think it's an unavoidable economic disruption. So I think an additional question is, as education professionals, what are we going to do to help bridge? There's going to be half a generation of kids that are going to live across this massive societal transformation. And we have a responsibility to them while, I think we're bridging across to that future.
I would agree. Same thing, same pieces. There's so much that's going on out there. I don't know what the answers are going to be. So it's going to be the disruptions that hit. Students are going to have to learn how to learn, unlearn, and relearn constantly. We just came from a STEM ecosystem meeting here in Southern California, and one of the things that they mentioned is kind of a side note. I think it was Boeing. They said they had talked to Boeing, and they're getting students that are coming out of college, and Boeing is saying, like, we have to like teach these kids how to unlearn what they've learned in college and then reteach them what we need them to know. And I think that really, it's not that their knowledge about engineering is wrong. It's about like, how do you solve a problem, which is the issue. Like, they're always looking for the answer. Well, we've got all kinds of machines that do that now. I think we talked about this before, like the calculators. Like, did calculators disrupt numeracy? Is numeracy still important? Do we still need to teach it? Yes. Did calculators like shut that all down? No, but it's still used, across all these different industries to make it work. And I think the same thing about writing. We talked about Socrates, right? Socrates said that if we write everything down, we're going to eventually not remember anything. And eventually now we write everything down. Everything's documented across the world, and especially with the internet, it's documented everywhere. So these things, these discussions on how it's going to help students and how we're going to support the kids and how we're eventually going to make sure that they understand how to engage in the world that they exist in, and realizing that the world, like today, when they arrive as a freshman in high school, by the time they graduate from high school, the jobs that they're looking for are going to be probably very different, and they have to figure out how to ebb and flow in that process. And education, I think the big thing in education is like, we've got a system, right? This system works. Here's how it works. Don't move it, because if we move it, then we don't know how to like rock that. It was Disrupting Education from Clay Christensen. He ended up saying that like, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. It hit, especially when the pandemic hit. It hit, and it hit hard, and everybody was like, just, oh my gosh, what are we going to do next? And now everybody's kind of fighting for their foothold and figuring out what we're going to be able to do to support these kids as they move forward. Esports is a huge one as well. There is so many jobs that are attached to that, and it's got viewership that is well beyond anything anybody in the normal sports industry ever thought it could be. And people are starting to wrestle like, well, what do we do with this? How do we tap into it? How do we get to be a part of that as well?
Yeah.
And it's open,
Thank you.
and it's opening venues for kids too, or people, so they can get connected, like socially, networking, all those kinds of things. Sorry, Courtney.
Great. Yeah, no, I love the call out to esports and CTE from Sam. I think those are big areas of change, exciting for students. I think in the near term, I'm particularly optimistic around personalization and what that means for differentiation and what we're able to do as teachers and educators. I know personalization has been like a buzzword for so long, and it's been very disappointing. But it's ultimately a data question and a time question. It's time intensive to personalize things, and it's data intensive to personalize systems. And so I think we're getting closer and closer to that. An example which kind of relates to what Eric was talking about was, machines finding patterns and mistakes. So like if students are writing, for example, computer science programs, you can do evaluations of that and find where they're getting stuck and where they're all making mistakes. And you can group students together and give them instruction and help based on those groupings and what you observe. And something that would be very hard for a human to deduce based off of, lines and lines of code and things like that, but that machines can do fairly well. So the teaching part is not something the computer can do, but I think the identifying of who's doing what and who kind of goes together is interesting.